right, let's take you straight to KwaZulu-Natal. Will the KwaZulu-Natal High Court today finally clear the way for the beginning of Jacob Zuma's corruption trial? Or will the former president have to fight another day? That's the question this morning, as the court is expected to rule on the National Prosecuting Authority's bid to have Zuma's more than 2 decades-old corruption case go ahead. The court will also pronounce on the bid by Zuma and his co-accused French arms manufacturer, that's Thales, to have charges against them drop. We have politics editor Vuyo Mvoko right there at the Pietermaritzburg High Court to follow this one. Vuyo, it's the longest-standing saga. I mean, it's lasted careers of a lot of us journalists, really. And today might see the day where it finally kicks off. But what are the chances?
Well, it may, but it also may not. I mean, almost 2 decades later, and former President Jacob Zuma hasn't seen his day in court. The matter goes back to that 1999 arms procurement deal when the South African government decided to procure equipment, arms worth tens of billions of rands, and subsequently there were all these accusations that there were people who unfairly benefited. There was a lot of corruption, the prices kept escalating, and they took decades to actually settle the debts that is. But what is at issue right now is the NPA's application, where they've been saying, look, this matter has been with us for a very long time. We are ready to prosecute. Let the former president stop what they often refer to as Stalingrad tactics, because even if he decides to continue raising some other matters, he must just allow the case to actually get underway, something, of course, that the former president is opposed to. But what the court is also expected to rule on today is Jacob Zuma and Thales, arguing that the charges against them must be dropped, primarily because 2 key witnesses in this case were directors of Thales, have since passed on. So the court is then going to pronounce on those 2 issues. I mean, 8 or no less than 8 cases have been launched by the former president on this matter, 4 of which Thales was, of course, a part. But let's get some analysis, but also thoughts on what is likely to happen now. And to help us do that is Abigail Ngobesa. Very good morning to you. Thanks very much for your time. The question people have been asking since yesterday when we started talking about or previewing today's proceedings was, after so many years, what chances does this case have of actually getting off the ground?
It is a necessary question that South Africans are asking. But perhaps one would have to respond to your question by focusing on what is before court today. Like you rightly pointed out, that the court is seized with a balancing exercise to say the court have already dismissed the application by the Thales and former President Zuma on the basis that they wanted the charges to be dropped. But now the court is saying they have not been able to establish what the court deems to be an irreparable, irredeemable, and insurmountable prejudice if the trial goes on. But to come back to what the court have to balance on, the court have to balance the rights of the accused and the interest of the society. And you'd remember that the state have argued that, irrespective of whether or not the court grants this application for leave to appeal, they have to order that the trial goes on. But you will note that legally every accused person have a right to appeal. And of course, it's a tried law in South Africa that an appeal will automatically somehow suspend the execution of the order. But they are now saying the circumstances in this case are so exceptional that they warrant that the trial should proceed despite the noting of an appeal.
Which obviously, I mean, Jacob Zuma and Thales are opposed to, which then brings the next question. In the event the court rules against them, what options do they still have?
They can still go to the Supreme Court of Appeal through a petition or any other way. It does not necessarily mean that if the application for leave to appeal is denied, that is the end of the road. But what will be dynamic in this case is that there is an application that the court needs to give a judicial reasoning to say, is the case so much exceptional that the trial needs to proceed? And the argument of the state is that the criminal justice system have been ridiculed on the basis that this matter have taken so long. Will that hold so much water on the side of the judge to say, yes, the case have delayed, it's in the interest of justice that the matter proceed despite the appeal? So whether or not they are going ahead to the Supreme Court of Appeal, we are interested to know whether Judge Nkosi will then be saying, regardless of that, remember in his judgment he pronounced himself to say there has been an unreasonable delay, but he does not want to apportion blame in any of the parties. So we were waiting to hear whether he'll be saying whether the matter will proceed to trial despite the noting of an appeal.
So the former president and Thales still have another avenue open to them. We'll see what happens depending obviously on the judge's ruling. But on the other matter, which is the NPA saying, please stop the Stalingrad tactics. What does that mean, or what could just happen? What could the judge say on that matter, given the fact that it is the NPA and not him who have actually raised this matter beforehand?
And you remember that every accused person is entitled to rights as enshrined in Section 35 of their Constitution. And they are exercising those rights. But of course, you will note that one of the cases they relied on in their argument is the Bothma case, where the Constitutional Court was particular to say, when assessing the interest of justice, is not the rights of the accused that must only be considered. The court must go further and consider what is in the interest of the society. So we are expecting Judge Nkosi to articulate himself, take into consideration every bit and piece to say, in protecting the rights of the accused, does the interest of justice and the interest of the society get catered in the process?
We shall see what actually happens a little later on. Arabile, well, those who watched football last night would have seen the former president seemingly enjoying himself, watching a match between Amazulu and Orlando Pirates. But right ahead, there have been cones set up. It would seem that people are preparing for a crowd that may just come to join or support the former president as proceedings get underway in just under 2 hours' time. For now, though, let me take it back to you in studio, Arabile.
Vuyo, thank you so much for that, the former president on the losing side of yesterday's fixture, unfortunately. But certainly a lot to unpack a little bit later on today. Vuyo Mvoko will give us that throughout the day.